Hey everyone, Scott Norris here from scottnorrisphotography.com and the Arcanum. I've been asked by several people how I did this image, how I processed it. Let me show you. That's the what I brought in, and that is my finished product. And I've said in the past, how I process is pretty organic, and so it's difficult for me to go through step by step and show someone exactly how I did something, because many times I don't know how I did it because I'm just playing around. I've been telling myself for a while that I need to start recording all of my processing sessions, and of course I don't do that. Usually what it is I have an image like this one that I think, I don't really like it. It's kind of boring. It's kind of hard to figure out what's going on, but let me play with it a little bit and see what I can come up with. That's a good tip that I would give anybody is don't just throw away an image. Play with it first before you decide that it's not a good image. Now, if it's out of focus or something like that, I can understand that. But there's something in here that made me want to work with it. So I started working with it, and then I was halfway through the processing when I said, I can make something of this, and then of course then it's too late to record the steps. So, but I'll go through quickly, walk you through how I did this. To get to this point, I focus stacked because I was shooting outside. It was kind of dark. This was on the side of our backyard next to the garage, and it was dark. It was overcast, and I was handheld. So I couldn't use my, I couldn't change my f-stop to make where everything was in focus. So it was pretty wide open. Let me go to my Lightroom here and I can show you. These are the images. I can step through these and show that there's some movement in there. So what I did is I did my basic setup, my basic processing here in Lightroom. I changed... Actually, I left it. I didn't do anything to this. Interesting. Okay, I did a little bit of this. Usually what I'll do is I'll change my profile camera calibration to neutral. I left it at standard for some reason, but I did a little bit of work with it. And then I did edit in open as layers. I selected all of them, open as layers, and that brings it into Photoshop. And then you take all your layers, you go up to edit, auto align, and then when they're all aligned, then you come to auto blend layers and select focus stacking, and then that gets you here. I had to do a little bit of cleanup here and there because the Photoshop version of the focus stacking isn't as good as some programs like Helicon Focus, which is a really good one for that. So this is my starting point. I'm going to walk through you here all the different steps, and some of these I'm going to guess what I did because I really don't remember. Like I said, it's organic. So the first thing I did was, if you notice, there's these two black spots on the leaves. Here in Milwaukee, a lot of the maple leaves have this little blight on it, and I've been told that it doesn't kill the tree, it just makes the leaves ugly. And then, of course, the people that say that how to fix that is you got to get rid of all the leaves after they fall, because that will grow back into the tree for the next year. But of course I'm not going to go out and rake all these leaves. But I just did a content aware, and I did it quick and dirty. There's a little bit of issue there. I knew that I was probably going to do impression or glow or blurring or something, so I didn't worry about it too much. Then I went into topaz clarity, and I'm not even sure what setting I used, but this is the output of clarity. And if you haven't used the topaz filters, they're really getting really good. Obviously, if you see my work, and you know that I do a lot of impression and glow, and now with the new topaz texture effects, which is fantastic. But I also use remask, restyle, the denoise, and clarity. There's a few other ones that I use, but those are the ones that I use the most. So did a little clarity there. And then I added some exposure correction. And what I did here, there's a plugin that I use, and I don't have a link to it here, but basically what it does is it creates channels. I've already deleted them here when I save the file, but what it does is it creates channels using the zone brightness. I can't even remember what it's called, but it's different levels of brightness starting from 0 to, I think it goes to 9 or 8 or something like that. But it actually creates areas where you'll just select the blacks, or you'll just select the midtones, and then you'll select the midtones plus a little bit brighter. And what that does is you can go in and selectively do exposure correction on certain areas. So this is what the clarity came up with, and then I went in and with the exposure, this is the darks, and so I really made the darks, I think it was the darks. Let me, I'll click on this to see. Actually, this is the, looks like the midtones. So what I did is I went in with my exposure correction and just really crushed the gamma correction way down to make it much darker. And let's see, Alt click here. That is the brights. So you can see I actually brought the gamma correction the other way and brought the exposure down a little bit. And then what was this last one? This last one looks like the darks. And I actually brought the exposure. I brought the exposure up and the gamma correction down, I guess, or up. I guess that would be up to give me this. And so you can see the difference in the two. It's subtle, but like I said, I don't really go in with this and saying, okay, I want to do this and this and this. I start playing, and sometimes I'll actually do something that makes it worse, and then I'll put something on top that puts it back to where I want it. So, and then I did some selective sharpening. This is midtones, and then let me disable this so you can kind of see. Let me zoom in to 100%. And you can really see it. It takes a little bit. There's the sharpened version there. And I'll come back, and that's the unsharpened. So let me enable my layer mask. And what this does is it doesn't sharpen the darks, it doesn't sharpen the lights, it just sharpens the midtones. And to create that sharpen, I did filter, sharpen, unsharp mask. Alright, so there's that layer, and then I'm going to come down to my next group here. And the first thing I did is the edge of this leaf was disappearing into the back leaf. I wanted this to be my focus because it's the only leaf that's really full, and it's in full color. It's on a nice third here, so that's what I wanted to be my subject. But the edge is disappearing, so I went in and just darkened behind it just a little bit, just to make it pop a little bit more off that that bright leaf there. Then I went into the Nik Effects, Color Effects Pro. And usually what I do with this, I don't remember what I did, but I always go to Pro Contrast, and then I'll do a little bit of the warming brilliance. What I'll usually do is bring the color, heck, let me open it up so I can tell you what it is. So this is the Nik Color Effects. Loading the image up here. I've got a couple things going on in the background, so this is a little slower than it normally is for me. But I do Pro Contrast, I'll do that, and then I come up to the Brilliance Warmth, Perceptual Saturation. I'll do it on this image just so you can see. What's nice is you can slide this back and forth here, up here. You can see the image full, or you can do before and after, which is really nice. So I'll slide this over so you see the after, and I'll just bring the perceptual saturation up, and that's actually kind of cool there. I usually don't go up too far. Then I usually warm the image up just slightly, and then I'll bring because this brings the saturation way up, I'll bring the whole overall saturation down about an equal amount. Anyways, that's what I did. Let me cancel that out. So that's what I did for this one. I might have done a little bit more. I think I probably added a little bit of a vignette on that, very slight. Kind of hard to tell. And with this one, I probably went in within the exposure adjustment layer and added and painted in some of the darker areas and then flattened that in there. It looks like I did because you can really see there's some the areas that are dark. I made a little darker, some of the shaded areas. Then I went into Topaz Texture Effects. Obviously changed the color a little bit. Let me zoom in. I can see there's probably a tad bit of texture in there. It's kind of hard to tell because it's a lot of grain inside these leaves as it is. probably a little bit of texture. Again, I didn't remember what I did, but the texture effects, obviously I changed the color, it brightened it a little bit. And then I did noise reduction. I can zoom in here to show you. And I went really heavy with it because I knew I was going to do some effects where I really wanted the veins of the leaves and the edges to be sharp, but I didn't want the grain and all that dirt and noise that's in there to be brought out and to the forefront. So I did a pretty heavy noise reduction. I probably used the Image Nomic Noise Wear for this. I've got a setting that it's basically what I call full, and it just goes in there and really takes out just about all the detail. But I know when I went full with this, I didn't want the tiny little details. I wanted the edges and the veins to stick out. So then I went in to Topaz Impression, and I've got my own a preset that I built called Photo Real. That it is very subtle, but it just adds tiny little paint strokes to soften some of the edges. Let me see if there's an area in here in the darks you can really see that's on and that's off. On again. So you can see there's a little strokes in there. It gives it, I don't know, I guess a painterly feel, but it's subtle. It just kind of warms the image. It softens it a little bit. So then I went in with some, you can see I brightened the dark midtones a little bit here. I did a hue saturation where I wanted to keep this saturated, so I used a mask and a gradient here, a radial gradient, to make the edges less saturated. And I didn't go too far with that. Well, I guess it is kind of far, but gradual, so it keeps the focus here, because color is a big compositional element. So if you really want something to pop, if the color is more in the area that you want to pop, it'll stand out more. And then I did a little of exposure correction on the leaf itself. As you can see, I just brought the gamma down and the exposure up a little bit, and what that does is it really makes the contrast pop, and so the veins and stuff on the leaf pop more. And here we go into the final selection here. Let me hide those things so you can see what I did. So they went into Topaz Glow, and this is layered in there a little bit. Let me go to 100% here and show what this looked like. That is what I started with, and I believe this is the preset called Fur and Feathers, I think. There's another one that's in that same drop down that I might have used, but I think I used Fur and Feathers. And then I just brought the opacity down to about 50%, and then used the, well, actually, let me just undo all this, soft light. It really boosted the saturation, which I like, but the those white edges of the effect, when you do the soft light, it really makes those edges pop, which is really cool. And then let's see what this is. Okay, that's impression. Let me put that on there so I can come back. And it's a preset that I've done some work to called Da Vinci. The Da Vinci preset in impression is black and white with just a little bit of color in it. And what I did is I brought the saturation back up and did some work on it, so I could do stuff like this. And I think I used lighter color here. Is that what I did? Let me actually undo all this. Go back to I did use lighter color. Okay. Type impression back here again. And to do this, you just double click on that. And then the final thing I did was use color lookup to give it the overall color. Now again, you can see that I was making this more saturated, and more warm, and then my final step was to take the saturation down and make it more blue. Go figure. But the color lookup, it comes down here into your layer mask, your adjustment layers here. Color lookup is right there. And what is really neat about this is basically color lookup is color space. You can create your own if you'd like, but it is basically, this comes from a lot of the film where they can do color correction on a whole film by using a setting. And they've got different, a whole bunch of different settings. You can load your own. I've loaded a whole bunch in here. But I love this foggy night. Let me go to 100% here so you can see what it looks like. It really makes it look like a foggy night. It makes it really blue. It makes your highlights really pop, and everything else is really muted. And so I brought that in normal, at a normal blending mode at opacity of about 60%. So that is hopefully helpful, and for those that wanted to know how I did this. See, that's what I started with, and that's what I ended with. So the takeaway from this is, don't throw away images that there's something about it, you look at it and think, oh, I kind of like it, but it's not a good composition, or it's not in focus, or it's boring or something. Play with it. Just get in there and start throwing stuff at it, seeing what happens, layering it. I can tell you that there are several things that I did here that I went back, I deleted and started over because it wasn't going anywhere. But by playing around, by experimenting, doing things that you might not do, playing with tools that you never have played with before, you're going to learn things. You might get to a dead end on the particular image, but you might say, okay, the next image, there might be an image that pops up and you think, okay, that technique that I used on that last one, I'm going to use it on this one. It's going to work great. So I hope this is helpful. I will promise, I have my fingers crossed, so I know, because I might break this promise, but I promise that I'm going to start recording my my processing so you can see step by step exactly how I did something. So that's it. You guys have a great day. This is Scott Norris of scottnorrisphotography.com and the Arcanum.